who destroyed heaven in Diablo 4, as we arguably have proof heaven is now hell.
Hell is coming, brother. Hell is coming.
It is confirmed, thanks to the Diablo 4 lore panel, that heaven suffered catastrophic losses in the wake of Malthael's genocide. We also know the crystal arches are closed due to a corruption permeating heaven. Well, what's left of the crystal arches after Imperius face-checked the gate.
Alright, Diablo 4 takes place decades after the events of Reaper of Souls. Though Malthael's plans were foiled, the Angel of Death exacted a terrible toll on humanity, and Sanctuary suffered great devastation. Entire populations decimated, cities ravaged. Heaven itself suffered great losses, causing them to shutter their gates. You can
close the gates. That's terrible.
And you can imagine what that does to people. Religious schisms, famine, war, basically humanity left to our own devices. And we know how well we do on our own.
Not so good.
But then the question remains, who destroyed heaven? And while you may say, the gates are only closed due to severe losses of Malthael, that doesn't mean heaven is actually destroyed. I would point to the fact, during an official developer's update, Blizzard surreptitiously shared artwork of what clearly appears to be the Silver City in Diablo 3 in flames. The once pristine city is now degraded into what ostensibly looks to be an outpost of hell itself. Now, officially in-game at least, the last we saw of heaven was admittedly over 50 years in the past, post-Diablo's defeat, when Tyrael absconded with a black soulstone in Reaper of Souls. So, what happened? And who caused this destruction? Well, let's explore the top 5 contenders, ending with the most likely to be running heaven as their new hellish seat of power.
My children. The lords of hell are coming to devour our world. Salvation lies not in the light, but in you.
First off, it really goes without saying that heaven may have only been weakened after Reaper of Souls, and what we witness in these pictures happens during the events of Diablo 4 in the future, making our first contender the Daughter of Hatred, Lilith. As we know, she's entered hell for her own reasons, and looks to end the eternal conflict according to the official item Mother's Embrace, which details that Lilith was summoned by the Pale Man Elias as he wanted to end the eternal war. So if she ended things in hell, then, logically, heaven would be next. However, Lilith entering heaven and killing off the angels is very reminiscent of the culmination of Diablo 3, with the primeval bludgeoning the angels into submission, and probably wouldn't be fun to visit twice.
Resist her temptation! This is how you choose to approach me.
Our second contender, however, may be a little more of a long shot, but the angel Anarius does seem to be shrouded in mystery and self-obsession in his cause to, in his words, return home, as first stated to the player.
Everything I've done has pulled me further from home, from the place I need to be.
And again to his son Rathma before entering hell.
All you must understand is once I am victorious in hell, the high heavens will welcome me home, where I belong.
Now again, ostensibly, his mission does seem virtuous, as he wants to kill Lilith as he interpreted the prophecy so that he would be welcomed home to heaven. Superficially, it seems he's paying for his sins. But does this really ring true? How would Anarius communicate with the angels and confirm they'd let him back in? Or is he, like the player, in for a rude awakening when he heads home? The other angle to be considered is the line by Lorith Nah.
The cathedral loves to go on about him. His imprisonment in hell, his valiant escape, his glorious return here, the world he created. But they never mention how being tortured in hell for a few millennia turned you into an arse.
Clearly, torture at the hands of Mephisto for millennia, thanks to his old brethren, the Angiras Council, offering Anarius up as a bartering chip at the culmination of the Sin War, probably wouldn't sit well with the fallen angel. He would have a lot of time to think how he would get his revenge on heaven, and his ascension to the crumbling heavens with his army of zealot followers perhaps would be drenched in blood.
This audience is concluded.
The time of our final victory is at hand. Let the way to hell be opened.
Speaking of Mephisto, it should not be ruled out that the greater evils, or at least some type of demonic form, may have a hand in the fall of heaven directly. Although not yet officially confirmed, we have had glimpses of the prime evils in the game and artwork, and it is strongly suggested that our guiding wolf is none other than the Lord of Hatred, Mephisto. So it goes without saying, after seeing their plans come to fruition time and again, that in 50 years between Reaper of Souls and Diablo 4, the primes or even other lesser opportunistic evils may have secretly made their way to heaven and caused untold destruction.
Why are you helping me?
Oh, it's very simple. You want to stop Lilith, and I want you to succeed. But you'll never do that by following the Horadrim.
Go! Find the Nephilim!
Although this is admittedly a long shot, this is one of my favorites, and it's something to at least consider. The Nephilim, being the heroes of Diablo 3 and Reaper of Souls, spent the majority of their time fighting off the forces of hell, only to be scorned by the angels' leader Imperius.
Nephilim, I see you did not heed my warning. Or perhaps you think yourself strong enough to face me.
Perhaps I do.
Imperius, stop this madness. Diablo is the enemy here, not the Nephilim.
At the culmination of Reaper of Souls, the Nephilim seemingly go supernova in power, as their ancestor Odyssean once did. Furthermore, we're yet to see them in Diablo 4. So, what happened to them? Perhaps it was at that moment Imperius decided to end the threat that he saw coming, being a man of half angel and demon unchecked, and Tyrael, who is also unseen in D4, bar a grave that Loreth Nar speaks to, which is heavily implied to be his resting place, well, could have plausibly stepped in between the Nephilim and Imperius as they brawled, and somehow Tyrael was killed in the skirmish, attempting to intervene, and an enraged Nephilim destroyed Imperius where he stood, and decided that once they had defeated the forces of hell, that they would go to heaven and wipe out the heavenly host for their transgressions, as Tyrael's last known words in Reaper of Souls warned of what may happen if the Nephilim ever turn to darkness.
In that moment, with victory at hand, I saw the Nephilim in a new light. He is a hero who can defeat the champions of heaven and hell, and a barbarian who protects the innocent. But within him beats a mortal heart that will one day be tempted to corruption. On that day, will he have the strength to resist? Or will he be our doom?
Angels, demons, I fear their conflict will soon engulf the world of men. And when it does, what hope will there be when even the wrath of angels cannot be quenched?
It's here we see the Archangel of Valor lash out in an event orchestrated by Diablo to prove that the angels were no longer unified and that Imperius held a dark secret. The Prime Evil's plans come to fruition, and we see the Angerus Council's harmony has been shattered, and they lose the galvanizing aspect of their brothers. For example, when the Angel of Hope, Auriel, is captured, all hope between the angels is lost by her surviving brethren.
But you don't understand. Hope has been silenced.
Dire tidings indeed.
We are lost. Diablo is too powerful.
Therefore, by this logic, if Tyrael did indeed pass away between games, that means the Council is possibly operating without justice or wisdom until he is replaced, which we will cover his replacement soon, but the more pressing thought would be, this would be a perfect catalyst for heaven to close its gates and for Imperius to sink into his unjust role of tyrant ruler and the aspect of wrath. Furthermore, we congruently learn, thanks to developers behind the scenes, The Imperious arc of Wrath was meant to be concluded with him becoming a fallen angel and reaper of souls and embracing his more demonic side. During said video, we also see him officially beat the tar out of Tyrael within an inch of his life for siding with the mortals and become more demonic. However, as having two big bads would diminish Malthael's role in the game, the established arc was somewhat unwisely scrapped. Although this entire clip will be shared at the end of this video to bolster this theory. So, instead, just like the end of Diablo 3, Imperius was left to seethe in the wake of the Nephilim's great deeds. Speaking of heaven's corruptions and them being forced to close their gates under Imperius's rule, during the novel Storm of Light, we learn that angels are brought to life through the Light Song.
Yes, like musical notes in a grand chorus. Angels are the manifestation of the Archer's intrinsic harmony. The purest expressions of this harmony were my brethren, the Archangels.
I see little harmony in this place.
Yes, but hope has returned. And as you mortals are fond of saying, it is not over yet.
It's an act first observed through the mortal eyes of Tyrael, where angels would sing in harmony and bring an angel to life. Now he would come to a grim set of discoveries that ultimately would hold long-lasting consequences. Discordant notes would permeate the pristine chorus, and there was a darkness swallowing the light around its source, the Black Soulstone. Tyrael and Imperius would take the artifact before the Angiras Council. But this was a costly mistake. Tyrael would observe major changes in his fellow council members, the Black Soulstone fueling deep emotions as Imperius pushed for the eradication of the burning hells once and for all, Auriel fearing the stone's power, and Itheriel reeling in uncertainty. Tyrael ultimately removed the stone from the high heavens, attempting to hide it on Sanctuary, but the damage was already done. Now, imagine Tyrael has indeed passed away, and the angels attempt to sing two new angels of justice and wisdom into existence, only for these angels to be irrevocably tainted. Or perhaps within the tainted heavens, no new angels can be born due to the corruption, and a desperate Imperius closes the gate, trying to figure out how to fix the heavens. But then, over time, he starts to succumb to dark thoughts and rules with an iron fist. With hope gone, justice silenced, wisdom deposed, and heaven's fate sealed. But what do you think? Again, I will show the brief segment of Imperius's fall in the behind the scenes, so feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
We started out was sort of a brother against brother idea. You know, you had Tyrael and Imperius, two awesome characters that had all this back history. There's a painting that initially ignited some people's imagination. That was this painting of Imperius with bloodied gauntlets. And it's just a very arresting idea. We started to think about, well, you know, Imperius is going to come for the Black Soulstone. That's the mechanic that we're going for with the plot. But what if he also takes some time to really exact vengeance on Tyrael, who he considers to be a traitor? You know, this is the angel that ripped off his wings and joined the mortals. And so it just seemed natural that Imperius would take a moment to really relish in Tyrael's demise.
We did want to almost kill Tyrael or make him to the point where he was almost dead. And most of the cinematics or the storyboards at that point contained an enormous amount of blood that was going to be included in the cinematic. He was going to be bleeding, possibly from his nose or even his mouth or other parts of scrapes or cuts on his skin. We need to make that not only look as realistic as possible, but also blend into the performance that we were trying to get from the character. An emotional performance that was going to be very, very hard to maintain.
From a technical standpoint, you know, we looked at doing the blood in a couple different ways. We could involve the effects team and do it as a fluid sim splashing onto the metal, but there's a lot of computation to this. There's a lot of iteration time that's lost.
But in that instance, I think it created the right level of emotionality that we were seeking.
We wanted Imperius to look a little different in this expansion than we wanted in the first game. He definitely has undergone some damage. The Heaven's Gate absolutely collapsed on him.
So his armor, we want to progress in the sense that it had all this wear and tear, all this dent. That was one thing we were playing off of, and we were playing off of how his personality was reflected in his armor.
And we wanted that to echo the thematic truth, you know, that Valor had turned to wrath, and that there was more math going on inside that suit of armor than just, the power of evil itself, is that his whole being was really turning and transforming.
And Imperius by nature is a very reflective character with giant bright wings. He's an angel, and when we looked at it from a lighting standpoint, we're like, okay, how do we get a very bright character to sit into this world now that is supposed to be full of shadow and darkness?
There was an idea that we had that we were very fond of, that when Imperius reaches out to claim the Soul Stone, when he touches it, you would see the hint of a transformation. The idea is that it would be very dark, he would be largely a silhouette, and as he touched it, that silhouette, all the points on his helmet would just elongate slightly.
So some spiky things coming out from the shoulders, and then the face or the helmet started to deform.
Sort of much more demonic looking. His eyes would slant inward. He'd get much more of a sinister look on his face. We didn't have a lot of time to accomplish it, but we definitely wanted to suggest that it was going to start happening.